Both in the UK and globally, our growing human populations alter the natural environment. In England, most of our native forests have been cleared for timber and agriculture. With the Industrial Revolution and mechanisation, we are clearing more and more land to build roads, railways, and our ever-expanding cities. This human destruction of natural habitats is having a negative impact on our wildlife, with rapid declines in biodiversity globally. The loss of species from an ecosystem can dramatically alter the way it functions as a whole.
Rewilding is all about putting nature back together. So if we think of wildlife as a system of interacting animals and plants that all kind of work together to support each other, where humans have come along and maybe taken certain animals out of that system or plants out of that system, you've lost the role in those interactions. And when you lose those interactions, it actually can have a negative impact on the system as a whole, so everything kind of gets worse and worse. Other animals struggle. 100,000 years ago was the last time we had a similar climate to today. We had no Homo sapiens running around, none of us, we weren't here. We had elephants here, we had lions, we had hyenas. We had this proper, what you imagine as an African environment today in Europe under the same climatic conditions today. We had hippos living in the Thames. And with a combination of various climatic changes, humans turning up with spears and this kind of brand new technology that's never been seen before, and these animals totally unadapted to dealing with it. We think of wolves as a brilliant predator. People at the time, hunter-gatherers, were even better. We got these incredibly efficient hunters coming in and changing the system. And throughout this period, this extinction pressure on animals here and just reducing the abundance of wildlife, got rid of huge numbers of species. I think we lost about 65% of our large mammals that could have been here today are just wiped out from the system.
The New Forest National Park is an example of a forest mosaic ecosystem. It is maintained by allowing large herbivores in the form of domestic livestock to roam freely in the forest. Their grazing and trampling of vegetation creates a variety of biomes within the woodland, increasing the diversity of local species. Another management practice used in the New Forest that works with nature instead of against it is to leave a cut or fallen tree alone to decompose, providing important deadwood microhabitats. Perfect for mosses, lichens, and fungi. As insects feed on the rotting wood and multiply, they provide an abundant food source for forest bird populations. The decomposition also helps enrich soils for future generations of plant growth.
In Britain we have, I think, about 12% woodland cover, which is much, much lower than the European average and what you would really expect to be found. You wouldn't expect it to be wall-to-wall forest in Britain without people, but you'd expect a lot more than we have currently. We have a responsibility to think about whether we should bring a species that was once native here that we wiped out. The Eurasian lynx is a cat. It occurred in Britain up until about 1,000 years ago, I believe, and it was probably wiped out by humans hunting. Why it's really getting a focus at the moment is because we have a large deer population. And lynx are a really good predator of roe deer, kind of that size animal. So any herbivore that's very highly abundant will eat trees and prevent regeneration of woodland. If you bring lynx back in, they will predate those roe deer and might change those dynamics, allowing more woodland regeneration.
People think that when they associate the word rewilding often just with lost animals or insects, and it doesn't have to be about that. It can be allowing nature to slowly restore itself or do things that mimic nature to then allow nature to do it itself. There's a number of examples of working with natural processes, which is like rewilding rivers, rewilding land, that can help to prevent floods. Usually they're around things like slowing the flow of water down rivers. So for many years in this country we've been straightening our rivers, canalising them, and that's partly to ensure that farmland stays dry and is farmable. And what studies are showing is that where those rivers have been allowed to meander and flow naturally, it actually slows the flow of those waters. And when it does that, people in villages and towns downstream from those rivers don't get affected so badly by huge pulses of flood water coming down over a sort of a 24-hour period.
In 2014, the Somerset Levels experienced one of its worst flooding events in recent years. The waterways in the Levels are managed using hard engineering, including dredging the silt of the riverbed with machinery. Rather than remove sediment from rivers, the tangled root system of trees and plants can stabilise the soils of the banks, protecting them from erosion. This has sparked national debate on the effectiveness of current flood prevention strategies and the benefits of leaving some space for nature.
Rewilding Britain is interested in people as much as wildlife. There are issues about reintroducing species and people's attitudes towards animals that they think are not natural here because they haven't been seen here for so many hundreds of years. But those can be overcome. It's been shown in Bavaria, for example, they've had a successful reintroduction of beaver, and what they've done is they've appointed beaver wardens so that where there are problems, if say beavers are making too many dams or encroaching on farmland where they shouldn't be, they go and assess the problem and talk to the local people and then either compensate for damage and or do repair work. We wouldn't want to see projects that are carried out that haven't been done in consultation with the local community, and where we want to see more rewilding happen, but not where people haven't had a chance to talk through what projects might happen in their area.
Modern human beings have retained a connection with the environment, often as a means of escaping the shackles of city life. By actively rewilding, we humans can take steps towards restoring sufficient lost elements to an ecosystem so that it can not only survive, but allow biodiversity to flourish. Nature is extremely resilient and, if given sufficient freedom, can regulate itself. Shouldn't we strive to be a responsible part of it, not apart from it? If we do not act to restore our wild spaces, the future of larger-bodied iconic species will be condemned to the confinement of cages and presented as spectacles of the past. Rewilding may yet offer a chance to save them.